Hello, my dear friends. Hello, my dear listeners. I hope you are doing your best to serve your duties with utmost honesty and love. So, let's start the next part of our journey through the life of our master Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa Dev, and we are reading the chapter Relation with his Gurus. So, what happened next? After the 6 long months of his Nirvikalpa Samadhi state. So, let's proceed. After 6 months, Sri Ramakrishna gradually recovered. His mind acquired the power to accommodate itself to the plane of relativity as well as to that of transcendentalism. As a result of the Advaita realization, it had acquired a wonderful breadth, accepting all forms of religion as so many ways of reaching perfection. An instance of this Catholicity we find in his practice of the Mohammedan faith soon after his recovery from the dysentery. A man named Govinda Rai, who was originally a Kshatriya, but who, being attracted by the spirit of universal brotherhood obtaining in Islam, had embraced this faith, came to Dakshineshwar at this time. He was a lover of God and probably followed the practices of the Sufi sect. Rani Rashmanesh charity had provided a place for all, and Govinda found a congenial atmosphere in the garden of Dakshineshwar, where he took up his residence. His devotion soon attracted the notice of Sri Ramakrishna, who was charmed with his great faith and love for God. Gradually, it came to him that since Mohammedanism was also a means to the realization of God, he would see how the Lord blessed the devotees who worshipped that way. He made up his mind to be initiated by Govinda. Once the idea became fixed in his mind, there was no delaying its fulfillment. He intimated his desire to Govinda, who was glad to initiate to the practice of this new religion. The master applied himself with his characteristic thoroughness. Thus did he describe his mentality at this period. Then I used to repeat the name of Allah, wear my clothes in the fashion of the Mohammedans, and recite the namaz regularly. All Hindu ideas being wholly banished from the mind, not only did I not salute the Hindu gods, but I had no inclination even to visit them. After 3 days, I realized the goal of that form of devotion. First of all, he saw a radiant person with a long beard and of grave appearance, and then his mind passing through the realization of the Brahman with attributes was finally absorbed in the Brahman without attributes. Hriday used to say that during this practice, Sri Ramakrishna was willing to eat Mohammedan food, and it was only at the earnest entreaty of Mathur that he desisted from it. Knowing that Sri Ramakrishna, with his childlike tenacity of purpose, would not be satisfied unless he could carry out some part at least of his desire, Mathur had various dishes prepared in the Mohammedan style by a Brahmin under the direction of a Mussulman and gave them to the master to take. During the practice of Islam, he never stepped into the precincts of the temple and lived in Mathur's quarters, which were outside the temple compound. Sri Ramakrishna's realization in the Mohammedan form of practice appears to be fraught with far reaching consequences for India. That he practiced it after attaining perfection in the Advaita, makes it clear that only through this, the underlying basis of all faiths, can the Hindus and Mohammedans be united with each other. The master was aware of the wide differences in views and temperament between these two rival faiths. But may we not from his successful practice of Mohammedanism that the existing barriers will one day be obliterated and the two races clasp each other in amity and love. Time alone will prove the truth of our surmise. Sri Ramakrishna was still very weak after the attack of dysentery, and it was thought that a change to his native village would be beneficial. Mathur and his wife supplied the necessary funds for the trip and undertook to see that the master would be taken care of during his stay there. About the month of May in the year 1867, Sri Ramakrishna started for Kamarpukur, accompanied by Hriday and the Vairavi Brahmani. His mother preferred not to leave the bank of Ganges and remained at Dakshineshwar under the care of Mathur. It was 8 years since Sri Ramakrishna had been in Kamarpukur. His relatives and friends were eagerly expecting him. They had heard all sorts of rumors about his strange behavior, that sometimes he dressed himself as a woman and called out the name of Hari. At others, he led a sannyasin's life, and at still other times was a Mussulman repeating the name of Allah. All this made the simple village people anxious about his mental condition. But great was their relief when Sri Ramakrishna appeared in their midst. He was the same old Gadadhar, with his boyish frankness, his genial good humor, his extreme truthfulness, his whole souled devotion that made him lose consciousness of the body in the name of God, all intact. Nay, there was something more. There was an extraordinary spiritual atmosphere about the young man which prevented too free approach or discussion of worldly topics with him unless he chose. At the same time, his very presence was enough to drive away all their mental troubles and discomforts and bring to them joy and peace. Some strange influence attracted them to his side in large numbers to enjoy his saintly company. The house of Rameshwar was thronged with eager visitors of both sexes from early morning to late at night. The master stayed at Kamapukur for 6 or 7 months. It was a great relaxation for him to enter into the joys and sorrows of the simple village folk. After the stormy sadhana at Dakshineshwar, it became his endeavor to awaken these old friends slowly and silently to the real object of this life and to teach them in the midst of their daily occupations the lessons of self control and surrender to the will of God. Among this, he was surprised to find some really advanced souls who appreciated the depth of his spiritual realizations. The master narrated the following incident. One day, after dinner, he was seated in his room when some woman of the village came to visit him. In the course of the religious talk that followed, he fell into a trance. As this was by no means an uncommon occurrence in his life, the visitors continued the conversation. Finally, one of them asked her friends to keep quiet, saying, "He is now swimming like a fish in the ocean of Brahman. Please don't disturb him in his enjoyment." Though not believing her, They became silent. On the master's return to consciousness, they asked him about it, and he said, yes, she was quite right, but I wonder how she could know about it. Those artless village folk had a sincere affection for Sri Ramakrishna. Many of the women brought sweets for him. Those who were busy at home passed their leisure moments in his company. Sarda Devi, his girl wife, was then staying with her father at Joyramba. The last time she saw Sri Ramakrishna was when she was 7 years old and too young to understand her position. The only thing she remembered in connection with her husband's visit to Jarambati was that his nephew Hriday had shouted her and made an offering of lotuses at her feet. Shortly after Sri Ramakrishna's arrival, she was sent for. The master learned of it but expressed no opinion. A girl of 14, Sarda Devi, or the Holy Mother, as she became known later to the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, arrived at Kamarpukur. Strictly speaking, this was her first meeting with her divine husband. After a few days' stay, she understood his mental condition and was eager to serve him with all her love and devotion. She dedicated herself to him, heart and soul, and looked to him for guidance and illumination, to which, as his wife and devoted pupil, she had a foremost claim. Of a pure and spotless heart, she rejoiced that she was bound to this God man by an indissoluble tie. The master willingly shouldered his new responsibility and began to train her. He remembered his guru's words on finding that he was a married man. What does it matter? He alone is firmly established in the knowledge of Brahman who can keep intact his renunciation and discrimination even while living with his wife. He alone has attained the supreme illumination who can look upon man and woman alike as Atman and deal with them accordingly. A man with an idea distinction of sex may be a good sadhaka, but he is still far from his goal. Here was a chance for Sri Ramakrishna to test his realizations by allowing his wife the rightful privileges of her position. He subjected himself to an ordeal from which he emerged brighter than ever. So, we will come to know in the next chapter, in the next episode. Till then, be happy, be jolly. Shubhamastu.